So these are basically going to be live recorded um, sessions of podcasts that I'm going to upload to YouTube because I found that after making YouTube videos, there wasn't really a need to necessarily make videos with my face on it, right? So I thought, all right, let me just use Instagram Live to so you can see me, and then I can just upload the videos to YouTube. And I want to use this platform to basically talk about those things that I'm studying, those things that I'm interested in. A lot to do with Buddhist psychology, my own dreams, and investigations. Usually post meditation, I have a lot of stuff that comes to mind, and sometimes I feel I don't really have a means to talk about this with everyone. So in this modern day and age, we can just upload something. And I just want to make it clear that I'm not here to tell you something. Like, I'm not here to try to impose a belief or anything like that. It's more like I'm using this as a means of like shadow boxing, in a sense. Like, I'm practicing with myself to kind of test out these thoughts that I have, these concepts that I have, just to see if they stand their ground. Because, for example, one thing that I really wanted to investigate was past lives, which is a topic that has been coming up a lot recently. I've come across a lady called Dolores Cannon, and she uses hypnotherapy and makes her clients go into past life regressions, right? And the idea with this, which really fascinated me, having had some experience in methods of looking back into past lives through the state of trance, that to know where you've come from is a very good stepping stone to see where you are right now. And for someone who is curious about themselves and wants to improve their situation, questions like, why am I here? Why am I here on this earth? What is my purpose? All of these kind of stuff. Knowing where you came from is important and very, very helpful. Like, who are you before you were born? It's a good question, but do we ask this of ourselves? Maybe not so much. But these questions I've been asking. So, past lives, okay? Like, we can investigate them, because the idea is that everything that we've done is contained within us. If we can free ourselves enough to kind of like be able to allow things to come up to the surface, right? Because in a sense, I feel the majority of time I myself, I'm holding on to certain states of being. So it's like the worst thing that we can do is just to not want things to change. Like, whether if it's a pleasant situation that we're living in, that we're experiencing, then we want to hold on to that. And there's this, the idea of attachment and clinging. And if there's a situation also that is unpleasant, then we want to push it away. And this constant ebb and flow of pushing things away or drawing things in is in Buddhist psychology called aversion. And they talk about aversion and how by living in this state, that all that results is kind of a confusion, because we're just building more and more like adversity and liking and dislikes and likes and dislikes. And you know, a lot of times when you're living in this kind of state of being, you can't really make sense of why certain things happen to you. So in this case of like going back to past lives, it's like we forget where we came from because we're constantly seeking out new things to do, new concepts are constantly like taking our attention away from the present moment. And it just puts us in a state of confusion. So past lives, regression, and working in the now through sitting meditation, I found is very, very helpful for me, because when you sit, when you're doing this sitting meditation, you're given a very simple but very complicated practice. The simple fact is that you're seated comfortably in the start, and you're asked to not even place emphasis, but to observe your breath, observe your breathing. So, for example, I remember at the start of my journey, when I just started to do sitting meditation, it would be like most of the time just falling asleep. You would sit down, gong would go off, or the bell would ring, and maybe you'd be determined, right? And then a minute in, you just fall asleep, and then maybe you catch yourself. But then I found like the more and more that I sat, the longer that I can maintain this concentration within, you could say, the present moment, where you give yourself, you give your attention to your breath. And over my experience, I found that observing the out breath is actually much more beneficial than trying to place too much attention onto the in breath. There's this kind of like sense of life and death just in breathing. Like when you breathe in, the whole start to finish of this in breath could be summarized as a life lived. And the out breath is this moment in life where, say, we need to let that go. So depending on like the quality of the in breath and quality of the out breath, that in its entirety could be seen as a practice of birth and death. And I had this realization, and there's some truth in it, because I feel it's important to know how to live, but also to know how to let go, to breathe out, and also how to die. I think like one thing that has been really, really pressing is like, I really want to know how to die properly, right? It's like, and it sounds kind of, it's not even morbid. It's sort of like, that's the only like truth. There's many truths, right? But that's a fact. You're gonna die. What dies? That's a good question, right? And in many traditions, many spiritual traditions, this is like a constant recurring thing, this question of death, or the life after death, and before your life, and all these stuff. Yeah, but I find like meditation in itself is a preparation for death. And in so many different traditions, they say that death is not nothing to be, you shouldn't worry about it. Like, it's only kind of a modern day materialist society, especially with especially with the advent of, say, like more the bigger world religions, right? So say the Catholic Church and stuff like this. They're basically kind of coming from a more materialist standpoint, right? So everything is material, everything is kind of dense, and a lot of emphasis is placed on your physical body. So they're making you fear, and they're also making you see, like, they're controlling in a sense, because they're saying that when you die, it's like your body dies, and it's so physical. There's no teaching on like what might live on. Okay, and I don't know. Recently, I believe that I kind of question whether the personality, there's something about consciousness that lives on through lives, because the body falls apart, right? It returns back to the elements. But if I just say the personality, it could be like your challenges, but also your gifts. So if you've practiced patience and you've cultivated patience, I believe that these virtues you bring forth into consequent lives. But with, like, I'm realizing that even growing up, so much emphasis was placed on like the materiality of, for example, like appearance. So how I look, how I should be presentable to everyone else, which is important because, you know, we need to coexist with other people. But in a sense, that doesn't live on. You can't bring your good looks to the grave. Do you mean, like, when you die, you have to let that go? So in a sense, like, maybe those who, let's just put it like this, maybe like, if you're born in this life and you have a beautiful body and you're beautiful, maybe that's because you've worked on something and you've been granted a beautiful body, right? Because maybe your lesson, maybe your challenge now in this life is to not cling to this beautiful body so much, right? Because very easy to get lost in your image in the mirror, right? Spend all day looking at yourself in the mirror, just admiring yourself. But then when you get older, you know, that too is also going to crumble. So where is your attention placed? Like, what is your view of all these things? Because if you don't have, as the Buddhists say, a right view on how things are, then you're going to be a little bit bewildered, a little bit surprised when old age happens, when your body starts to fall apart, when you inevitably get sick, when you can't have the things that you want, right? All these things which are just normal, it's part of normal life. And that's why I think, like, we need to always have this sense of like how things are in the back of our mind. Not to say that we live life like nihilistically or we live as pessimists, but more that we, or at least I'm trying to see things as the way they are, right? And that's like the practice in itself, is not clinging too hard to things, enjoying things. So say now I'm learning how to play the frame drum. I really, really enjoy it, but one day I'll have to put it down. Do you mean? Or like I want to play all into the night, but at some point I have to put it down because I have to go and do other stuff. Do you mean? And that relationship between that gap of what I want and also what I don't want, it's like how I react to that is the important aspect of it. And I think that dictates like so much of what is to come, who you're becoming, and what you need to like work on and stuff like that. And also this aspect of being able to slow things down, right? Especially because we have this speed, this this sense of urgency in this society where everything needs to be accomplished very quickly and suddenly. And again, I'm grateful that over these years I've actually learned how to be okay with doing nothing. Just being able to sit in a chair, standing at a station, whatever, and just being in that moment. Do you mean not desiring anything, not wanting to change anything? It's like such a useful thing that it's like the value of it is incredible. And sometimes I just wish that other people can experience this for themselves, because I don't know, I feel a lot of people, everyone's suffering, everyone is like going through stress. Okay, that's another thing that we also have to realize. And in a way, it also connects us and binds us together, right? Realizing that everyone's going through something. So you can't get mad at the next person because they're going through something. They're human like you. So we're all collectively experiencing difficulties. So when you see it from this standpoint, like I can't even get mad at people anymore, because like, you know, I mean, you can still get mad at someone, but not like as existential madness, like this person, I fucking hate this person because X, Y, and Z. But when you can just slow down and just realize like everyone is going through something, even if it's to the point of a pain in their body, now you can be like, we can relate, because we're human when we both share the same stuff, like we're going through the same stuff. And I think that's so important, because I feel on the spiritual path, like what I mean by spiritual path is maybe when the gaze is looked, when you turn your gaze inside to investigate what's going on without neglect of it. Because I feel like on the spiritual path, or let's just call it the path or the middle way, okay? If you say the middle way is like, so the Lord Buddha, like, he proposed the middle way, which is a way of not excesses. It's like not the excess of like materialism where you're just pleasure seeking, and not the other excess where you're just like self mortification, right? Where you just completely, basically, just hate yourself, right? And you're just on a path of destruction. So for his time, it was like the ascetic practices where, I don't know, say for example, people who might fast for several days or just train like crazy. Like, say in a modern context, it'd be like someone who just goes hard at the gym to the point where it's just like now they're actually just damaging themselves, right? So the idea is to always find a middle. If you can find a middle in everything, things are much, much better for you and for other people as well. Finding a middle ground. Not too hot, not too cold, like somewhere in between. And it's important because when you start to meditate and, look into yourself and all these things, sometimes the ego can flare up. So you're kind of like, yeah, I'm meditating now. Like, I know more than other people. Do you mean like this person that I used to be like this as well. It's like, yeah, I meditate. Like, do you meditate? Oh no, you don't. Oh, okay. Like, I'm better than you. Do you mean it's so easy to fall into this trap because you feel amazing. You know what I mean? You understand things. You're more sensitive. But that's the trap, like, which you shouldn't fall into. So you always have to keep this, they say, like a foot, like, on both sides. So, for example, like, have a strong practice where you're cultivating your concentration, and maybe post meditation, you are aware of how you go about your life, how you interact with people, all these kind of things. So that, you can then kind of be a societal person. Like, it all boils down to that. It's not just let me do all of this so I can be a meditation teacher, or let me do this so I can be an artist, or whatever, yoga teacher. It's like, no, like, these things are there to make you normal again. And what I mean by normal is like, you don't need to stop everything you're doing. Like, you just sometimes just need that little time out where, you know what I mean? Take a deep breath. You're a bit stressed. Okay, take a deep breath out. Now you can go back, Now you're not being a dick to people on the street or people at work. Do you mean? You're not placing the blame on other people. And you're just being of assistance. And I think that's super important. It's just to learn how to be yourself. It all boils down to that, like learning how to be yourself. And it takes a while. It takes a while. You know what I mean? And yeah. So I don't know how long this went on for. Should probably have a little timer or something like that, because I'm recording on my computer. So I don't know if I had any questions. I think shout out to my mum. She's always supporting me in my endeavors. But she asked, how does Qigong help? What would you recommend a good program? So I would recommend Damo Mitchell. He's an excellent Qigong instructor, Neigong instructor, and does Tai Chi, Bagua, everything like that. And you can find out more about him on his, I think it's Lotus Academy. But if you type in Damo Mitchell, you should find something. He also has really good books. And I think, so in my experience, I've been practicing Qigong or Neigong specifically for about 3 years now. And it has a lot to do with regulating your energy system. So we're all composed of energy, right? There's all different degrees of energy. Okay, when you're sick, maybe you lack energy. When you're a bit gassed, you got a bit more energy. But this human vessel is somewhat akin to a system. And if we can learn how to operate the system to the best of our abilities, we can regulate our energy more. So we can administer our energies appropriately and also cultivate and refine them, right? So say, for example, me, I've realized that my sexual energy is very strong. Sometimes it's been overbearing, right? So sometimes it's like not knowing how to work with that. Do you mean it gets you doing all kinds of crazy stuff? But knowing how to like not just waste your energy, okay? Masturbation, sex, too much physical activity, all of these things, right? Because it's like you have this abundance of energy, but you don't know how to work with it. Qigong and Neigong is like a process where, if you imagine alchemy, you are like working. It's like you start off with the raw materials. So say if you're in body, you have the raw materials, and then you might refine them, right? So it's a process of refining, then polishing the energy, your energy system, which in turn is also helping out your organs, the way your blood flows, the way the rhythm in your body is operating, your channels, all of that stuff. But right now I won't go into specifics because it'll take too long to talk about. But what I love about Qigong and Neigong is that it's practical. You have theory, and usually the Taoists would and Dama would describe theory is important because it gives shape to the mind. Like it allows your mind to become a shape, right? So say, what do I mean by that? It's like, say with everything. Say if you are a ballet dancer, okay, you need a certain physique to do that. And if you're a bodybuilder, you need a certain physique to do that, right? So theory about the body, energy body, all of that stuff, the theory is important to learn because you're kind of like saturating yourself and building the right container for the practice to operate in. So it's like, that's why theory is important, but also practice is important. So say from our Western culture, where more emphasis is placed on a theory, that's the problem because there's a lack of practice. So you're just all up in here and you're identifying your mind as this, when instead, why not operate from this mind, right? So you're always stuck up in your head and wonder why you always get headaches, because you're your awareness, your whole being is in your head. So with practice, you kind of you realize, oh, I have a body, like I have more to me, right? And to round that all off, becoming more sensitive, becoming more aware of yourself, other people, so you're not a dick, right? Just being more aware, more sensitive to things, and with that, a lot of more times, like you begin to operate better in and around amongst people and stuff like that, and you just become like, yeah, I don't know, G'd up. But like I said, I'm probably gonna stop it right here and gather my thoughts, and the next one will be a lot more composed. So much love, bless to all of you. Have a wonderful day, and speak soon. Bye.